Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the Launchpad and our live launch coverage of Ariane 5's final flight flying from Launch Area 3 in the French Guiana. The audio should be there. Let us know. Give us a 5x5 in the chat. We're testing out some new systems. This broadcast isn't coming only from here in our TLP studio here in Edmonton, Canada. I've also got Dakota coming to us from our Space Coast studio in Florida, and it's being produced out of Glasgow as well in Scotland with our producer, Jay. So we're super excited to have the TLP crew here online testing out some new systems. Dakota, how you feeling?
Oh, just another day in paradise, Zachary.
Awesome. Well, it's an exciting day seeing that last Ariane 5 out at the pad. You're looking at a live view of the pad as we're now under 40 minutes and counting till the final flight. We want to say right off the bat a thank you to Arianespace and the team there in French Guiana for getting us this live feed so we can go live earlier and bring you full countdown to launch coverage. We're going to run through everything we know about today's mission, but as always, if it's your first time here, welcome here at the Launchpad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us here. We're going to be answering your questions, so you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those live to the best of our ability, but also listening in to the live sights and sounds of today's launch. But to get us started, seeing lots of people jumping in, we've got Germany in the chat. We've got weather's looking good. Let's see where people are tuning in. We got Rue from Portugal. We've got Florida. It's great having you all joining us here today. If you want to know more about today's mission, you can head on over to tlpnetwork.com as always and learn more with our detailed mission briefings. We're working on getting those even more detailed, and stay tuned. They're going to have an exciting update in the next couple of weeks, bringing a lot more information on what these briefings will look like, making it more easily accessible. But that's a lot of talking. Get us off the bat. Send in your questions. We're going to work on answering those live. But maybe, Dakota, to get us started, do you want to run us through what's on board Ariane 5 today?
So today aboard the VA261 mission, we have the Heinrich-Hertz satellite from the DLR. That is a German space agency satellite, a geostationary communication satellite. As well, we have the Syracuse 4B, which comes from the French Armament General Directorate, the French MOD. And both of those are going to be communication satellites geostationary today.
Think we good there. Awesome. Testing some new systems. We're working on the fly, bringing you guys best possible coverage that we can. And we're glad to have many of you joining in. We got Turis in Spain. We got Gumhio, I'm saying that totally wrong, in Kentucky. We got Kuro in Ottawa, Canada. Great having here. Argentina, Palm, South Carolina. We got Montenegro as well. It's great having you all joining us in here live today. We're now about 36 minutes and counting till launch. We expect to get some more audio from Mission Control here, starting about the 30-minute mark as we go through the final bit of the countdown for today's mission with Ariane 5. Ariane 5 going for its 116th mission in its history, a long-standing vehicle that originally was going to actually be able to fly crews, but ultimately became a heavy-lift cargo vehicle carrying some of our favorite payloads, including the James Webb Space Telescope and JUICE most recently. If you guys want to pick up, though, we have our limited edition Ariane 5 Mission Complete Tee. It is a full tour kind of tee showing all of the missions Ariane 5 has completed. The link is in the chat and the description. You can pick that up over on the shop today. That's only going to be out for a limited amount of time, so definitely check that out. And all the profits of that go back into bringing us, be able to bring you guys the best possible coverage as we work to plan our Ariane 6 coverage, as we plan to have our team down there in French Guiana for the first flight of Ariane 6 whenever it happens to be ready sometime next year. And we're excited to be working with Arianespace, hopefully to be able to bring you more of that coverage as we see Europe really stretching to a new era of their space exploration, being able to launch more vehicles and payloads, as well as maybe even crew launching sometime in the future. Seeing some questions come in the chat. As a reminder, you can send those in the chat as always by tagging us at the Launchpad. That helps us make sure that we can see those. So don't forget that at the Launchpad. In there, we got Stuart's coming in from the UK. Social media is from Sweden. Great having you. Tony's in the UK as well. Arnaud, Juice, that spacecraft rings a bell. Arnaud, great to see you in here. Arnaud's one of our TLP rocket chasers that got to go see Juice before it got packed up and headed out to the French Guiana for its flight. Great to see you in the chat there. Ricky, thank you so much for those 5 gifted memberships. Greatly appreciate that. That all goes back into upgrading equipment, getting new testing in so we can bring you the best possible coverage. And we're excited. We've got new overlays coming for launch streams. So this is going to be one of the last ones here that you're going to see, kind of the classic TLP look. So stay tuned for that. We're excited to do that. And that's all thanks to your guys' generous support. As we continue through the count here now, about just under 35 minutes and counting until launch. I know we had some questions just before the stream got started, so we're going to work on catching up on some of those. People asking about the liftoff time. So liftoff currently is targeting 6 p.m. Eastern time. We do have an hour and 5-minute window for today's flight, so we are watching for any updates to that targeted T0, but at this time everything is green and they are tracking towards that top of the hour, 6 p.m. Eastern time for liftoff. Exciting, just 8 minutes or so after the scheduled sunset time, so we might finally get to see a sunset Ariane 5 flight, and a great way for Ariane 5 to go out with its last flight there. Marcine's asking, are you gearing for Crew 7 in August? We are getting ready for that Crew 7. We'll most likely have Dakota out on site. I'll be hosting from up here in Edmonton, and we'll have some of our TLP rocket chasers down on site as well, covering it from around the Space Coast. So definitely stay tuned for that. Exciting to see another crew getting ready to head up to the International Space Station. We're expecting to get DDO audio here in the next couple of minutes, so we'll be listening in for those sights and sounds, and also hearing the live audio from on site as we await sunset and launch to occur. Chelsea, I have no question, but I want to say that space is for us all better with you from TLP. Thank you. Well, thank you, Chelsea. That means the world to us. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all of you here. It's a dream for us to get to do this. So that the fact that we get to do this and have an amazing community around the world to come together for these launches, we're excited for it. Running us just quickly through what we know about the 2 payloads, the H2SAT aims to explore and test new communications technologies in space at a technical and scientific level in order to determine how broadband communications, for example, can result in high data rates for mobile final users. So they're going to be looking at communication technologies there. That is a German H2SAT. We also have the Syracuse 4B, which is a communications satellite that was contracted in December 2015. And it is a military communication satellite for the French Armed Forces and is the second one that will be launched, replacing the Syracuse 3A and 3B sats that were launched in 2005 and 2006. These new satellites are entering service, and are offering a higher performance system for the French Armed Services, including new services, and they're expected to last for about 15 years. So I'm sure they're already planning the replacements, Syracuse 5A and B, but we'll see when those ultimately get to fly, as we're just over 30 minutes away from liftoff of the final Ariane 5 flight, seeing that live view of Launch Area 3 and Kourou in the French Guiana. If you're wondering why it's sunset and we're not in Europe for a Europe launch, that is because Kourou is located on the northeastern tip of South America, above Brazil. So much more almost like a North American launch, even though it is a European rocket. And after we see Ariane 5 fly, there's not much more we're going to see out of Kourou at this time. We're having a delay return of the Vega, and we don't have any Soyuz right now. So this might be our last stream from the French Guiana for a little bit. But we're excited to see Vega get back out to the pad when it's ready for its return to flight, and then eagerly awaiting Ariane 6 to begin its testing and then have its maiden flight next year. Ian's asking, have there been any updates on Starship? Not at this point. They're still doing a lot of groundwork for it. Lightning Jack, TLP is great. You are there. Yeah, we appreciate you being here. How accurate is the 24th of January for the launch of Artemis 2? I promise you, Artemis 2 is not launching on January 24th. It is right now, I believe it's targeting quarter 4 2024, but that is expected to most likely slip just based on how NASA missions to the moon generally run. So definitely not there. Catching up on the chat here. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. We are going to be listening in for that DDO audio from Mission Control down in the French Guiana, as well as listening into some of the sights and sounds of Launch Area 3. Lily, got my limited edition tee. It's on the way. Awesome, Lily. When you get it, if you make sure if you guys get your TLP gear, send that to us over on social media. Just tag us TLP Network. We always love seeing you guys with your gear. And one thing we want to do, we're excited. It's a big day. Final flight of Ariane 5. Take a moment, take a picture of your screen. You can be with your picture watching and tweet it. Let people know that tonight Ariane 5 is flying for the final time. Invite people to join us. We're going to be answering their comments and questions. And space is really better together. So invite people to join us, as many people don't know about this incredible rocket that it will be flying for one last time. Catching up here on the chat. Very few questions, just all really nice people. You guys are awesome. Catching up if there's questions on Ariane 5s, the payload, arianespace. Ian, I'll be there for Artemis 2. Awesome. We're definitely going to do some more meetups starting this fall down on the Space Coast. So we want to try to do, we're thinking maybe quarterly meetups or half-year meetups. So we'll see what happens. Definitely stay tuned for that. There will be more things happening on the Space Coast as we're working with some exciting partners down there to bring some more activities down to the Space Coast around launches. ETR, is there an official date for the test flight of Ariane 6? Not yet. They did roll out what looked to be a full Ariane 6 to the pad to do some testing. So they're working through that and are in development of the first actual flight vehicle for the launch of Ariane 6. So we're expecting sometime next year and excited to see those developments. Once Ariane 5 is kind of fully out of the picture, that is where that focus is going to be go. And we do have the mission control audio at this point patched in, so we'll be listening in to hear any updates that we get from that, and we'll pause anytime we do hear that, or try to pause anytime we hear those, to make sure that we don't miss any important information as we count down to the top of the hour, 6 p.m. Eastern, for the launch of VA261, the final flight of Ariane. Appreciate that, Kel6. Glad that you're here. Aeon Space, do you feel that the timeline for Susie, the crewed vehicle for Ariane 6, is realistic? And do you think it'll actually fly? I think I'm going to hand that one over to Dakota, because we were just talking about Susie before we got on here. What you thinking, Dakota? Check 1, 2.
Here we go. All right. There we are.
There we go.
All right. So I have a lot of hope for Susie. It's going to be very interesting seeing the ESA being able to get a crewed program up and really expanding that market of crewed spaceflight. We really inspire people the most through getting to see our planet and the rest of our universe with our own two eyes, especially up in orbit and beyond. And I know the ESA tried before back in the 80s and 90s with the Hermes spacecraft, which has been really cool. But due to financial constraints, they couldn't get it. So it seems like the whole of the ESA and its member nations are very much so invested in Susie, and even more so than they were in Hermes back in the
For those that were wondering about Susie and don't know why we're talking about a girl's name here, Susie is actually Ariane Group's offer to Europe for an all-new, smart, reusable upper stage concept vehicle that'll launch on Ariane 6. They'll be able to service the International Space Station and other orbiting space stations here. We don't have a timeline fully on when they hope to see Susie come into operations, but the initial photos of Susie showed it at the International Space Station. So that gives us a timeline of before the end of the decade. So we are keeping a close eye on that timeline to wait to see what we see. But Ariane 6 obviously has to fly first. Rui is asking, Susie, why aren't they going to team up with Dream Chaser? Dream Chaser, I think both of our favorites vehicles. We need more vehicles. We need more than one option. We need to have not only redundancy, but frequency. And I think that's one of the things having more of these vehicles offers. We were talking to a couple of different launch companies and research companies that there's some incredible research into cancer treatments and hopefully cures. There's a lot of stuff Redwire is doing with their bioprinter and looking at really changing changing many lives, but also just getting rid of the transplant market by creating these new options that are built from your own cells. But for that to work, we need maybe not daily, but at least weekly launches to these stations. So Dream Chaser, Dragon, Susie, maybe Rocket Lab gets into the game. This is all just helping to have that frequent travel to low Earth orbit and then hopefully stretching on beyond that. We are now counting down here, just over 23 minutes and counting until the launch of Ariane 5 from Launch Area 3. If you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. If you have comments or questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we will work on answering those live. We are listening into the mission control audio here as we continue through the count to hear any updates on the timeline or updates on the weather. But it looks to be a beautiful day out in the French Guiana as we continue to count, looking for that first sunset launch of Ariane 5, a beautiful way to close the Ariane 5 chapter. Pinned to the top of the chat here on YouTube, we do have a link to our limited edition Ariane 5 Mission Complete tee. It's kind of a tour tee celebrating the incredible history of 116 missions over 26 years of history. So definitely take a moment, check that out. Pick one up. Global shipping's available. We got extra small to, I believe, 5 or 6XL to make sure everyone can have something because space is better together. And we believe that across everything that we do. Ian, how do you feel about this being the last launch of this rocket? Do you believe it's time for it to end it and move on? Ariane 5, kind of one of my favorites, one of the few that I have a model of. I think there's just something so powerful about it. It's had an incredible history in the things that it's launched. Obviously, the world really got to see it with James Webb. That was a really big kind of normal world catching event and launch, and people are excited to that. So it's a neat rocket. The power of those solid rocket boosters on the side, it leaps off the pad. So it's different from a lot of the other rockets that we see, like Dragon, SLS, Soyuz. So it's sad to see a rocket retire, but I think it's exciting because we know Ariane 6 is so close. So it's not like when Shuttle retired and it's just, we're done, we don't know what's next. We know Ariane 6 is coming. It's well into development, and we'll be excited to see that go out to the pad hopefully within the next year and begin that and continue that Ariane journey for it. It's an old rocket. 26 years ago, technology was very different. 26 years ago, we could not do this and bring you this type of coverage. So sometimes it's time to innovate and retire that older tech. So yeah, sad to see it go. Absolutely. I'm sure it is for the people that have worked on it. There's some people that have worked on this for their whole career, and that's the vehicle that they've worked on. So yeah, I'm sure there's lots of emotional people today, but also excited people to see this chapter kind of wrap up there. So catching up on the chat, you can keep sending in those questions. Just make sure you tag us at the launch pad and we'll work on answering those. I'll throw it out there. We do see some questions coming in that are more like Starship and SpaceX focus. We're super excited. We're going to be launching a couple new shows here on the channel. We're going to be doing some member only streams coming up starting this month. We're also going to be starting up the launch pod is coming back, and we're going to do some Q&A streams as well. So make sure you stay tuned for some of those. We want to make sure that when we're working with a customer's payload, we focus as much as we can on that customer and that launch vehicle, so that we can give that best coverage for those for new people that may be coming. But lots to talk about with SpaceX and Starship, and I think that's probably going to be one of the first episodes of the launch pod, diving into our experience at the orbital flight test or integrated flight test, and looking at the future and integrated flight test 2 happening in the next few months. Kelsix, Zach, do you think ESA will ever have manned space vehicles? So that was Susie. They're working on developing Susie with Ariane Group, and that will be something that ESA will hopefully be able to fly on. Beast, how will Ariane 6 be better than Ariane 5? So one, just newer tech in general. It's a smarter vehicle across the board for it. Has a greater payload capacity, if I remember correctly, as well as it does have the ability to carry some different options with its scale and its size. And I do believe it was actually cheaper for them to produce, or at least that's the hope of it. We'll see when they actually get into mass production of these vehicles. As we said, Ariane 5, 26 years, and it's flown 116 missions. So right in that, you're averaging 4 a year. So that's quite a few rockets of this scale of a rocket to be able to launch. This is a heavy lift launch vehicle. So that is quite the task, and they're not cheap vehicles. They're very different from something like an Electron rocket. So cost is a major factor. And this is a big international partnership. That is why you see on the side of the rocket all the flags that are on it. This is a partnership between many countries being possible. Ariane 6 in the chat. I work in the place where they make the top of the boosters in Belgium. That's awesome. Well, thanks for being here, and thank you for your work. If you guys do happen to work on any of these vehicles, definitely say hello in the chat, and we'll try to give some shout outs there. Also, stay tuned. We are doing our Behind the Console series is getting off the ground as we sit down with more people and shine lights on people that you may never have heard of in the space industry, because ultimately we do need everyone in the industry, from designers to lawyers to janitors to engineers and everybody in between. So we're excited to start shining some spotlights on those people that never get the recognition of being part of these vehicles, just like someone that makes the top of a booster that no one ever talks about. But it's just as critical for these launches to be able to happen. We're now just over 17 minutes and counting from launch. We are listening into that mission control audio, waiting to hear any updates from mission control as we continue with today's flight. And we're keeping an eye on social media as well. Shrek is asking, why are they launching the Ariane rockets in French Guiana instead of Europe? I don't remember the full reason why they started, but it does give better opportunities for things that are in geosynchronous. It's more equatorial, so they are able to get into a launch pattern around the Earth a lot easier than having to do something that's more polar. So that is a major benefit to that. Obviously, they do have to sail their rocket and payloads to the French Guiana, so that's more of a barrier. I think it's also just the ability of space. There are not a lot of launch sites in Europe. That's hopefully changing, but the French Guiana there. Also, technically, it is in French land, so it does count as part of Europe. So that they chose where they had the best option for the orbits that they wanted to be able to go to. Because of that location, they get a better boost with the Delta V for launching to the east by that equator. So they need less thrust to be able to get into more of an orbit, where launching against that kind of over the equator, you need more thrust and more Delta V to get into certain orbits. So all depends on what they launch. The same reason why we're seeing Electron launch from New Zealand and now from the United States in Wallops. It's why some of the other new launch providers are, starting with one launch site, but they're open to looking at others. Blue Origin's even now looking at expanding out of the United States, possibly for future launch sites. So it's something we're going to see more of, that these vehicles don't only launch from kind of a home base, but launch from other locations as well. Stealth mode has an interview request. The person that makes and installs the explosive bolts. That'd be a good one. Jay, our producer, you want to work on arranging that? If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad. You're joining us for our live coverage of the final flight of Ariane 5. You're looking at a live view on your screen of Launch Area 3 at the Kourou Space Center in the French Guiana, where Ariane 5 is fueled up and ready for flight now, just under 16 minutes and counting until that liftoff time. We are listening into the mission control audio, and the fact that it's quiet, I take as a good sign that there's not much to talk about. So we'll be keeping an eye on that closely as we get into the final bit of the count here. And once we get into that kind of 5 to 10 minute window there, we'll probably patch into the main feed to make sure that we are getting those updates as we go through that final count. If you haven't yet, though, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. It really does help us out and invite people to join us for the live coverage. A couple people saying we got some buffering there. If you do, just do a quick refresh and we should be all set. Gavin, one of our rocket chasers, asking, do we think there will be a space jellyfish this evening? Possibly. We are right after sunset. So that is definitely a possibility. We could have some sort of jellyfish type thing. That'd be quite the pictures that are happening during this flight. That'd be awesome to see. We all love a sunset launch, don't we? They're just really nice. Catching up on the chat, you just received Discord messages. Yeah, the Launchpad Discord is pretty active. So if you would like to join the TLP Discord, you can do so at the link down below. We'll drop it in the chat as well. It's free to join. That's where our TLP community hangs out in between streams, where our team tries to hang out. It's also where, if you are a TLP member here on YouTube or Patreon, you can get your early access to videos, to interviews. You get merch discounts, as well as get to give input on future video ideas. We've got a bunch of stuff in the works for not only the Launchpad news, and some other projects that are under works. So definitely invite you to join us on our Discord. And if you would like to become a member, you can hit that join button. That's where you can become a TLP member to get that membership access to go a little bit deeper, kind of behind the curtain into Launchpad there. So Trollin, thank you so much for becoming a member. We appreciate that. And Dreamland is sitting in the Discord. Awesome. Checking here. Catching up on the chat as we continue through the final bit of the count here. Now just over 12 minutes and counting till the final flight. A beautiful evening in Kourou. Catching up here on your guys' chats. If you're just joining us, though, welcome. We are now just T-minus 12 minutes and counting until launch of the final Ariane 5 flight out of the French Guiana. Now, we kind of, at the start of the stream, there was someone else on stream with me that we kind of just threw at you. Here's Dakota, that we didn't do a proper introduction. So we want to do that we'll bring Dakota on here. Dakota and I spent the last couple of months in Florida setting up our first Space Coast studio and getting some equipment ready. But Dakota's coming on. He's going to be helping take care of TLP News. He's going to be doing as our KSC and Cape Canaveral correspondent and helping with as a director of production, getting us to that next level of production. Dakota, I'm just excited that we're finally here. We got you on stream. I don't think we've ever done a two-person face hosted stream, so even
Not
that's
like
exciting.
this. We did one at Starship sitting next to each other, but nothing like this.
Well, and Starship was a journey, was it not?
But it's an absolute honor and a blast to be here. I was a longtime fan and viewer like most of y'all. I have a deep love for space flight, a deep love for the progression and the unity that it brings our species, and I'm really excited to be able to get TLP News off the ground for y'all. And we'll be doing weekly news shows, Q&As, and all sorts of other stuff for the news. So go ahead and jump on over there and subscribe.
Yeah, so if you haven't subscribed, the Launchpad's now actually 2 channels. So we're here on the Launchpad. That's where our live launch coverage, docking, space orbit activities, All our live coverage will happen, as well as the launch pod and some of those activities. The Launchpad News channel, which is linked in the description, that's where anything related to news is going to happen. Teleconferences, news briefings, interviews, all of that. We're super excited to have sat down with Peggy Whitson and John Schaffner, the commander and pilot of AX2, just shortly after their return. And those interviews are going to be coming out very soon. We're waiting to sit down with the rest of the AX2 crew. We've got a bunch of other interviews in the works as well, and those are all going to come out over on the Launchpad News. And our members, keep an eye out. You are going to get early access to those. And as members, you can send in questions via Discord to be included in upcoming interviews as well, where you'll even be shouted out with your name. So working on some exciting projects with Dakota to get that news site out, the Space Coast coverage brought online, and just continuing to expand here. We got an update out of Mission Controls. We're now under 10 minutes, and the status board for today's flight is absolutely green across the board. It is a full green as we continue. So weather's good, range is good, rocket's good, and payload as we go for the rest of today's flight. We want to give a big shout out, of course, to the entire Arianespace team and everyone that has worked on today's payloads and rocket to get to this final flight of Ariane 5 that's set to launch here in about 10 minutes time. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat, and we'll work on answering those live. A couple people asking about a countdown clock. Top left corner of your screen, soon to be top right, but top left of the corner of your screen for tonight. That is the countdown clock that we are working towards liftoff and syncing that with mission control to the best of our ability from different locations. As this is launching from French Guiana, being controlled in Europe, being produced in Glasgow, Scotland, and being hosted out of Edmonton, Canada, and the Space Coast, Florida as well. So lots of feeds going multiple places, testing internet connections, but things are progressing well as we go through the rest of the launch countdown here. Everything is progressing well in the count, though. The launch side lights have come on. Yes, they have. Elias, it's 12 a.m. for me, but I saw the stream, so I have to watch. But we're glad to have you here staying up for us. It's an important one to stay up for, the last one. Last Ariane 5. Declan, really, really important question. Excuse my ignorance. What are the purpose of the 4 towers for electric and safety? Well, Dakota's the one that lives on the Space Force, or the Space Coast, where they have to deal with a lot of what these towers deal with. So, Dakota, you want to run us through the idea of these towers?
Lightning's really bad. It can make things go boom. It can kill people. And here in the dead center of Florida, we live with, well, we call it the lightning capital of the world for a reason. So those are to deflect lightning, catch lightning, prevent it from touching the vehicle, affecting the vehicle's health in any way whatsoever, and to in general promote safety of anyone who is around working with the vehicle.
So we saw these used a lot with SLS. It's actually how SLS survived through a couple of storms in advance of its flight. So it's important to see. Now we don't see these towers out at Vandenberg Space Force Base because they're not as required. So it is really a regionally based thing. Talking over mission control. And we just had confirmation from the MCC. They've linked in. They have started that synced process. So everything is being locked together as we continue through today's count. Just over 6.5 minutes until liftoff here from Launch Area 3 in the French Guiana. The board remains green for weather, for range, and for the rocket as we continue towards this final flight. Elias, is it me or is mission control really silent? We do have a feed coming directly out of the MCC that we're grateful Arianespace has sent us. I do not believe it has all of the audio that they are fully saying, because not everything we're from the few feeds we have. Currently, it only has DDO on it, so we are trying to see if we can patch in the other ones as we get through that count, especially for during flight. But we're working on testing a few things. The French Guiana is very rural. It is in the middle of nowhere with very little development in the sense of it has a spaceport and there is a city there, but it is not like we're launching out of the Space Coast or LA where you have a mass infrastructure. So being able to get camera feeds and audio feeds and all that out, it is something that's limited. It has, if you've thought of Starlink, Starlink would probably be an upgrade to some of the internet connections available in Kourou. It is very limited currently, and we're excited to be seeing that change, hopefully. But because of that, that's why we have this one feed that you're seeing today. And we won't really see other feeds until we're into the telemetry. It's just because they just actually cannot release more footage out of there. That's why we see other footage come out post-launch, because they do record more. They just can't actually broadcast. So interesting to see. We are under that 5-minute mark. If you haven't yet, take a moment, share out the stream, invite people to join us, and engage that like button. It really does help us out. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name is Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And you're joining us for our live launch coverage of the very final flight of Ariane 5, launching the H-2B satellite in Syracuse 4B. 2 payloads on board on this final historic flight of Ariane 5, dubbed VA261. You're looking at a beautiful live view of Launch Area 3, where they are preparing for launch here this evening. The board is green for weather, for range, for the rocket. The team is progressing through the count as we are coming to now that under 4-minute mark until flight. Something we always do here at the Launchpad, we're going to do in about a minute from now, but we always do that go, no go. But if you're members, don't forget you do have your custom emojis, or you have your go and some other ones we're not going to say today, because we are excited to see Ariane 5 fly here today. But an exciting day. We're going to answer the last couple of questions. If you want to know more about today's mission, you can head on over to the link in the chat or the description. That's where our detailed mission briefings, and at the bottom there's a button you can click payload, and that's going to have our write-ups about what's on board today's flight as we continue through the countdown for it. If you are interested in becoming part of the TLP crew, a few ways you can do so. You can become a TLP member. That's a way you can help financially support us so we can get our teams down to French Guiana for the launch of Ariane 6, as well as around the world. We have some incredible opportunities coming up for the second half of this year, and we are already well into works planning Artemis 2, Artemis 3, and beyond's coverage, already doing testing of that. So we're excited for that as we watch the final chapter of another very large heavy lift launch vehicle, the Ariane 5, come to a close. It is an absolutely gorgeous evening. I'm shocked at how beautiful tonight is. Kind of a perfect perfect close for the Ariane 5 chapter. And as we see it, we are getting to that 3-minute mark, or 2-minute mark, excuse me. So as always, let's see that go, no go in the chat for us to fly. Dakota, we are almost there. The last flight of Ariane 5. Before we listen into mission control and just enjoy this, final thoughts.
Today is an absolutely historical day, and it's great to see such a beautiful chapter in spaceflight coming to such appropriate and gorgeous close. Can't beat that sky, can't beat the peaceful payloads on board, especially for the DLR. It's really cool seeing Germany be able to get their own domestically built geostationary communication satellite.
Yeah, it really is a gorgeous night and exciting. We are now under that 2-minute mark, right around that 90-second mark for it. Now, we should hopefully have audio of ambient sounds during this, but we'll see what happens as we get through the final count. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button. It helps us out. And we'll continue to answer your questions throughout the stream here. Today's count, but let's listen in to mission control for the final minute of the count. For the last time, go Ariane 5.
Top à 0 moins 1 minute. À tout de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité. Top, allumage moteur Vulcain. Allumage 2 EAP, décollage. Propulsion nominale. Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux. Propulsion nominale. Trajectoire nominale. Trajectoire nominale. Propulsion nominale. Séparation des deux EAP. Les paramètres sont conformes à l'attendu. Séparation de la coiffe. Propulsion nominale. Trajectoire nominale.
Well, what an absolutely incredible launch. That is hands down in the top 5 most beautiful launches that I have seen. An incredible final launch of Ariane 5. You saw even the booster separation was so clear. It was so similar to SLS, just in how beautifully visible that was. Incredible shout out to the broadcast team down on site, capturing this final flight of Ariane 5. But it's not done yet. That first stage is continuing to burn, and we'll be following along. Ariane 5 now currently 184 kilometers in altitude, 515 kilometers downrange, traveling at 3.25 kilometers a second. You're looking at these live views inside mission control as so many nations watch together and are watching as the final Ariane 5 flight launches to orbit here, carrying these 2 payloads up to orbit, closing off an incredible chapter, looking into the bullpen. You can see all of the different teams eagerly watching that screen, all the media that had rushed outside for this final flight. And this isn't the end for French Guiana. This isn't the last time we'll see this bullpen. We still have Vega, we still have some other vehicles, and Ariane 6 will be launching from here as well. As we continue through the flight, again, a big shout out to the entire Arianespace team. 26 years, 116 missions. Ariane 5, your final mission is almost complete. And that's an exciting and incredible launch history to have. If you're interested in getting your own Ariane 5 Mission Complete tee, that link is pinned in the chat, and all of that goes back to help produce the best possible coverage of these launches and preparing for the launch of Ariane 6. French Guiana, not the most easy place to get to, but we are making that effort to be there. On your screen, as they go through the feeds here, you can just see everyone listening in to the final sights and sounds as we continue now 221 kilometers in altitude, having traveled already 850 kilometers downrange in a straight easterly trajectory, now traveling 4.5 kilometers a second. Next major milestone we're going to see is that first stage separation. We're keeping a close eye and ear for that information. Continuing to listen in to the MCC.
Fin de mission sauvegarde. Tous les paramètres sont normaux. Séparation de l'étage principal cryotechnique. Allumage de l'étage supérieur cryo. Trajectoire nominale.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are now continuing through the payload deployment sequence for Ariane 5's final flight. We're approximately about 20 minutes away from the deployment, beginning with the H2B satellite, followed by Syracuse 4B just a few minutes later. We are following along as that second stage continues on its flight and has its, beginning its final part of its burn there. Now having that first stage complete. On the bottom right corner of your screen, you can see the live tracking map there, tracking it on its journey around the equator. Now well on its way, and you're continuing to see more live views inside the fishbowl, as everyone calls it. Or the official name, the Jupiter Control Room. As you can see there, that video comes in and out every now and again. That is just some of the restrictions on the internet connection down in the French Guiana, but we're grateful to have these incredible views from Arianespace for today's final flight. As we await payload deployment, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live to the best of our ability. We're about 14 minutes away from that first of two payloads being separated, and are continuing to follow along on the updates of the second stage for the final flight of Ariane 5. I want to give a couple shout outs there to some new members and some gifted members as well. That one guy gifting some memberships there, greatly appreciate that. Travis Thompson, thank you so much for becoming a member as well. I know we had a few just before the launch, and we're grateful for all of you as well here. Catching up, Trollin, welcome. Laura, thank you so much. Ricky Powell donated some memberships and became a supporter as well. Thank you. We appreciate all of you in helping continue our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. As we now 15 minutes into flight of Ariane 5, continuing towards payload deployment. As we said, you can keep sending in those questions for the final few minutes here. We'll work on answering those live. If it was your first time here, though, make sure you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth right here on the launch. Make sure to subscribe to our sister channel, the Launchpad News. That's where our brand new weekly space news updates, our live news Q&As, our exclusive one-on-one interviews, and space news shorts are all going to start coming out starting this week and over the weekend. So we're super excited to get that underway. Been working with the team on some ideas on how to cover all the space news that happens. There's so much of it, and we invite you to subscribe to that channel. Just really does help us out. Catching up on the chat here, the end of an era, it absolutely is. But Ariane 6 is close behind. We will not go more than a year-ish without an Ariane flight, and excited to see Ariane 6 out on the pad in the near future. If you're waiting for the payload deployments as the second stage continues its burn, a little bit on the two payloads that are on board today. Syracuse 4B is a French military communication satellite built by Thales Alenia Space. And the H2SAT is a small geostationary communication satellite built by OHB Systems and the German Aerospace Center, or DLR, to explore and test a new broadband communications technology. Jay put it in the chat there. Jay is one of our producer, excuse me. But again, just want to say a big thank you to Arianespace and their entire production and marketing team for working with us over. It's been at least 4 months we've been talking to them about today's flight and today's broadcast. So we're grateful for their partnership for this, and we hope that can continue for many years in the future, helping share the excitement of space exploration with more people around the world. And congratulations to their entire team on completing the final Ariane 5 broadcast here. Some incredible views from inside the Jupiter control room, seeing the live views and emotions of the people in the room for this final flight with 2 customers on board. To the customers, it's not a big deal that this is the final flight. This is their payload launch. That is, they just want it to work. But for many of the team that have worked on Ariane 5, this is obviously a bittersweet moment seeing their final rocket out on the pad and then successfully launched here. And we finally got a sunset Ariane 5 launch, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to see the team's photos from on site that will come out over the coming days and weeks to come. Now, just over 18 minutes into today's flight, we're waiting for payload deployment. Those payload deployments, H2B-SAT will deploy at 29 minutes 55 seconds into flight. Syracuse 4B will deploy 33 minutes 32 seconds into flight. They do have what they sometimes refer to as like the hat that will separate in between those two just at 31 minutes 56 seconds. That's how they stack the 2 payloads on board Ariane 5. The next milestone is going to be the ESC stage injection into a target orbit and beginning of the ballistic phase and coast phase. That event is going to be occurring in about 5 minutes' time, and we'll be waiting for that call out.
Il reste moins de 5 minutes de poussée de l'étage supérieur cryotechnique. Propulsion nominale. Acquisition de la télémesure par la station de Malindi. Extinction de l'étage supérieur cryotechnique. Début de la manœuvre d'orientation au profit de Heinrich Hertz Satellite. La phase balistique se poursuit nominalement. Séparation Heinrich Hertz satellite confirmée. Séparation Silda confirmée. Début de la manœuvre d'orientation au profit de Syracuse 4B. Préparation Syracuse 4B confirmée.
I think they might. Well, there we have it. The last Ariane 5 mission complete. Both payloads deployed into orbit. The last mission complete, VA261 from the French Guiana, H2B satellite, and Syracuse 4B now on their way to their final orbits, which will take a couple of weeks for them to get into final positions and be turned on and everything. But a big moment for both the French and the German teams as their payloads are officially in orbit. You're looking at live views from inside the Jupiter control room in the French Guiana, where teams are celebrating not only payload deployments, but also the completion of this final Ariane 5 flight. But officially, Ariane 5 mission complete. If you haven't yet, head over to the TLP Network shop, get your Ariane 5 mission complete tee. Closing of a really incredible chapter of a really powerful and incredible rocket. Looks like maybe some speeches. We're keeping an eye here to see what is going to be happening. But while we wait to see what happens in the Jupiter control room, Dakota down in the Space Coast,
Acquisition de la
thoughts, feelings,
télémesure
emotions.
par le satellite Heinrich Hertz.
And if you're just joining us, we are keeping a close eye on the Jupiter control room, seeing if we have any final speeches coming in through the mission control nets. Crunch, thank you so much. That is an incredibly generous super chat. Here you go. Thank you for all your great coverages. Crunch de Grace Hopper, thank you so much. That is so greatly appreciated and helps us continue to do best possible coverage. It looks like we're getting ready for a statement here from one of our favorite people in the Jupiter control room. And it doesn't look like they've patched in the audio there. So we'll put out Stefan's statement on the TLP Clips channel and news channels, one of those two. So keep an eye out for that and on our Twitter as well as we get ready to wrap up here. Crunch, again, thank you so much. We'll try this again. Dakota, thoughts, feelings, emotions, the final Ariane 5 flight?
It's an incredible vehicle, and it's an incredible close to an amazing chapter in spaceflight. It feels like watching the shuttle launch. At the very last one at that, and it's great to see a multi-generational spacecraft have such a beautiful close. I know people who grew up in the 90s watching it, grew up in the early 2000s watching it, and just like the shuttle launches, it's very important to European culture as the shuttle launches was to American culture, and those kids.
Oh, technology. It's so much fun. But absolutely incredible sentiment for just like Shuttle, seeing that last chapter of a vehicle come to a close. But I think that's probably going to do it for us. Payload deployment's complete. But if it was your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad. I'm joined by Dakota, our production director, KSC and Cape Canaveral correspondent for the Launchpad News as well. And we are so grateful that you chose the Launchpad Network as part of your launch coverage for watching the very final flight of Ariane 5. Again, an incredible congratulations to the entire team, not only of the rocket, but of the payloads. A big thank you again to Arianespace for partnering with us and working with us for the last number of months, working on getting some of the feeds for today. We look forward to working with you to continue this coverage of covering the most exciting part of space exploration that humanity's ever seen yet. But here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe space is better together. And for the final time on an Ariane 5 mission, you're looking at the Jupiter control room. But this is Zach from TLP HQ signing off. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.